Evan Hale, a quiet human courier working on a distant alien world called Valori Prime. He is only supposed to deliver a package to a huge royal wedding inside the ancient Crimson Palace. Humans are usually not allowed inside, but this time he has a special pass. From the moment Evan enters the palace, the audience feels something is wrong. The halls are too silent. The guards stare too long. The air feels cold, as if something is watching him from every corner. Evan keeps walking through the massive glowing hallways, carrying the small metal box. He doesn't know what is inside, only that it has a royal seal. As he moves deeper, he hears whispers, soft, echoing voices speaking in a language he doesn't know. He tries to ignore it. At the center of the palace, the wedding ceremony is already beginning. Hundreds of alien nobles sit in rows. Blue flames float in the air like ghost lanterns. The bride is arriving, Princess Lyria Voss, heir to the vampire dominion. Everyone bows. Evan stops, frozen. She is beautiful, but her eyes glow red and lock on him like a predator finding prey. The whispers grow louder. Welcome to my channel Sci-Fi Love Story. Thanks for watching. Please like and subscribe. Evan Hale walked slowly through the long crystal hallway of the Crimson Palace, carrying a small metal box in both hands, and trying not to look lost or confused because this place was far above the level of a simple human courier. The walls glowed with a soft red light that made the air feel cold and strange, like someone was breathing right beside him. Even though no one was there, he kept telling himself that he only needed to drop off the package and then leave as fast as he could. The royal wedding was already happening, and he could hear distant music rising and falling like a storm trapped inside a giant glass bowl. He followed the guards, who stared at him with hungry eyes as if they tried to understand why a human was allowed inside the palace at all. Evan felt nervous, but he kept moving because he had a job to do and nothing more. When he stepped through the final archway, he entered the grand hall where the ceremony was taking place. The hall was enormous, with hundreds of nobles standing around in rows wearing long dark robes that made them look like tall shadows. Blue fire floated above them like spirits watching from above. The sound in the hall fell lower and lower until it felt like a single heartbeat pulsing through the air. At the far end near the altar stood Princess Lyria Voss, the bride of the day and heir to the ancient vampire dominion. She wore a long crimson dress that shimmered like flowing blood, and her silver hair fell down her back like a frozen waterfall. Her eyes glowed deep red, and when she turned her head they locked directly onto Evan as if they had always been searching for him. Her stare froze him in place. He walked forward slowly as a guard pointed toward the ceremonial table. The guard told him to place the box there, but the voice sounded distant, like it came from underwater. Evan moved forward, hands shaking slightly as he set the metal box on the table. The moment the box touched the surface, the entire palace trembled as if some huge beast had woken beneath the floor. The blue flames above turned blood red, and the nobles gasped and stepped back. The guards reached for their weapons, and the groom Lord Varric shouted in anger. But all the sound faded when Princess Lyria began walking straight toward Evan. Her steps were slow and smooth, and the hall grew silent. Not even breath could be heard. Evan wanted to step back, but his legs did not move. Lyria stopped right in front of him, close enough that he could feel the cold coming from her skin. Her eyes searched his face, and then she reached out and took his hand. Her touch felt icy yet strangely gentle. She lifted his hand slowly so everyone could see, and then she spoke loud enough for the whole hall to hear. "Dance with me." The hall erupted in whispers and shock. Lord Varric shouted again, demanding answers. The guards took a step forward, but none dared come closer because Lyria did not release Evan's hand. Instead, she pulled him forward onto the glowing floor, and the music changed on its own, turning into a slow, powerful rhythm that seemed older than the palace itself. Evan tried to tell her that he was only a courier and he had no idea how to dance, but Lyria tightened her grip and guided him with perfect precision. Her movements were graceful like liquid shadows, while his were clumsy, but she held him steady as if the dance had already been chosen long ago. Symbols began to appear under their feet, glowing in red and silver lines shaping a circle that pulsed with energy. As they moved, she leaned close to his ear and spoke in a soft voice meant only for him. She told him that the package he had delivered was not a normal item, but a soul anchor created long ago by ancient humans and vampires for rituals of great power. She said that only a human could activate it, and that it reacted to his presence the moment he entered the palace. Evan could not understand why him or how any of this made sense, but Lyria continued speaking in a calm and steady tone. She told him she was being forced into marriage by Varric, and that once the wedding was complete the two vampire clans would unite, and begin preparing for a war that would crush human worlds. She told him she could not escape without the soul anchor because the ritual chains placed on her would drag her back no matter where she ran, but with the soul anchor and a human who could awaken it she had a chance to break free. Evan looked down and saw the box on the table beginning to glow. The lid slowly slid open. Even though no one touched it, inside lay a small crystal heart beating softly like a living thing. The glowing symbols under their feet reacted to it, and the hall trembled again with stronger force. The nobles backed away in fear and confusion. Varric shouted for his soldiers to seize them, but before they moved Lyria snapped her fingers. Time slowed around them. The guards froze in place like statues. The nobles turned into still shadows. The flames above stopped moving. Evan looked around wide-eyed while everything stood silent and still. Lyria looked at him with a mixture of fear and hope. She told him that if he did not help her then humans everywhere would suffer, but if he did help her then she would protect him with everything she had. She said she chose him because the soul anchor answered to him, and only him. She placed one of his hands on the glowing symbol, and the energy rose up around them like a rising storm. Before he could ask anything else, the stillness shattered. Varric alone broke free of the frozen moment. His rage was so strong that it cracked the spell around him. He charged toward them with his fangs out, and his eyes burning. Evan tried to step back, but Lyria pulled him closer, and the glowing ritual circle brightened until everything turned red and white. The last thing Evan saw was Varric leaping toward them as the light rose up like a wave and swallowed the entire hall. The blinding red and white light faded slowly, and Evan found himself lying on cold stone. The air here felt different, heavy and quiet. He pushed himself up and looked around, trying to understand where he had landed. The grand hall was gone. He and Princess Lyria now stood inside a long-forgotten tunnel carved deep beneath the Crimson Palace. The walls were made of old black stone marked with strange glowing lines that pulsed like slow breathing. Lyria helped Evan stand, and her voice sounded softer than before. She told him they had escaped through the ritual at the very last moment, and that Varric would already be searching for them. She warned that she could not freeze time again because the cost had been too great. Evan felt fear growing inside him, but he also felt a strange pull from the ritual circle still glowing faintly on the ground behind them. They began moving deeper into the tunnel. The stone steps sloped downward, and the air grew colder with every step. Lyria walked with graceful speed, even though she had used powerful magic only minutes ago. Evan followed close to her, and tried to understand everything she had told him earlier. He asked why the soul anchor reacted to him, and she answered in a low voice that long ago ancient humans created powerful artifacts meant to bind or break the energy inside vampire blood, but only a certain type of human could awaken them. Evan wondered what made him special. Lyria replied that it was not about power but about spirit and heart. He carried something inside him that the ancient artifact recognized, something that even she could not name. That answer did not calm him, but it made him walk with more purpose, as if he had become part of something larger than himself. As they reached a massive cavern, the ceiling stretched high above them like a dark sky, and a thin stone bridge crossed over a bottomless pit. The faint blue glow from the runes on the walls reflected on the bridge, making it look almost alive, but before they could take more than a few steps across it, a low hiss echoed through the darkness. Lyria stopped instantly, and pulled Evan behind her. Shadows moved on the far side of the bridge like liquid shapes sliding across the walls. Vampire assassins stepped forward. Their red eyes shone bright even in the dark, and their movements were silent as drifting smoke. They bowed their heads only slightly before speaking. Their voices were hollow and sharp. They said Varric had ordered them to bring Lyria back at any cost, and to kill the human if he tried to resist. Their hands formed long black claws, and their bodies shifted into battle stance. Lyria moved without fear. She stepped in front of Evan, her cold silver hair floating in the still air, and the strange tattoo-like runes on her arms began to glow. She told the assassins she would not return, and she would not allow anyone to harm the human who helped her escape. With a sharp movement, she unleashed a wave of shadow that spread across the bridge like a living serpent. The assassins dodged easily, and the battle began. The bridge shook as they clashed. Shadows and glowing energy flashed between them. Lyria fought with speed faster than human eyes could follow. She blocked their attacks and struck back with waves of darkness that made the assassin shapes twist and shriek, but they kept coming faster and stronger. One of them leaped behind her, aiming for Evan's neck. Evan stumbled back and almost slipped off the edge of the bridge, but Lyria grabbed his wrist with lightning speed, pulling him close and whispering that she would not let him fall. They kept running across the bridge and barely reached the other side when more assassins appeared. 2 dropped from the ceiling and 3 stepped out from the walls surrounding them. Evan looked around and felt hopeless. He had nothing to fight with, no weapon, no strength, only fear. But the crystal heart inside the metal box pulsed softly with a warm glow as if calling to him. Lyria saw this, and her voice became urgent. She told him that the heart must be placed on the ancient altar behind him before they were overwhelmed. Evan turned and saw a stone platform covered in old runes. The moment he stepped onto it, the runes lit up in bright gold. The assassins tried to charge forward, but Lyria held them back with a wall of shadow. She shouted for Evan to place his hands on the altar. He did so, and the crystal heart rose into the air, glowing brightly. The runes around him began to move like flowing lines of living light. A beam of light shot from the heart and struck Lyria, surrounding her in a cocoon of swirling energy. She let out a sharp cry, not in pain but in release. The ritual broke the blood bond that trapped her to her clan, and she fell to her knees as the last of the chains shattered. The assassins recoiled in fear as the wave of light knocked them off their feet and sent them crashing into the dark pit below. Evan rushed to Lyria and helped her stand. She looked lighter, freer, and her eyes no longer held the same sorrow. She thanked him, but then her expression changed. A deep rumbling grew through the cavern, and a massive figure stepped from the shadows. It was Varric himself. His armor was black like burned steel, and his red eyes burned with rage. His voice echoed through the cavern like thunder as he demanded Lyria return, or he would tear both of them apart. Lyria tried to shield Evan, but she was still weak from the ritual. Varric moved too fast. He struck her aside, and she slid across the stone floor. Evan felt a surge of terror, but the crystal heart pulsed again, growing brighter and brighter. It floated down toward him as if choosing him. Evan reached out without thinking, and the heart pressed against his chest, sinking into his skin without pain. Light exploded around him, forming a shining aura like armor, and he felt strength he never knew he had. Lyria looked up with shock and whispered that he had awakened the human-bound heart, a power lost for ages. Varric charged toward him, but Evan raised his hands and a wave of light surged forward, slamming into Varric and stopping him for the first time. Lyria rose again, and together she and Evan fought as one. Her shadows flowed with his light, and their combined power pushed Varric back step by step until he slipped near the edge of the pit. With one final burst of energy, the light and shadow struck Varric and knocked him into the darkness below. His roar faded as he fell, leaving only silence in the cavern. Evan collapsed as the power faded from his body, but Lyria caught him before he hit the ground. Her hands trembled slightly, though her face showed only relief. She told him he had saved her, and that the ritual had linked their lives forever. She said she could no longer return to her family, and that he could no longer return to his old life, but that they were now bound by a destiny neither had expected. She asked him softly if he would stay with her now that everything had changed. Evan looked at her glowing red eyes, no longer cold but full of warmth and hope. He nodded slowly, knowing that nothing would ever be the same again, and Lyria smiled for the first time, a real smile, gentle and full of light, as they walked together out of the dark cavern into whatever future waited for them.